Hi, my name is Haley Hunsaker, and I am presenting on the literacy approaches I use in my classroom. On our itinerary is the discussion of the bottom-up theories, including the simple view of reading, Scarborough's rope model, and the classroom applications. And then I will be discussing the top-down theories of schema theory and reader's response theory and their classroom applications. I currently teach at a Title I high school that is 1/4 English language learners, and about another 50% of the students have at some time in their educational career been English language learners. I have the specific role of teaching a cohort of 45 ninth grade students. In the first semester, they take a reading class with me where our goal is to build up their reading comprehension skills and other literacy skills in English before they then transition to ninth grade literature with me in the second semester, where they are required to meet the demands of the state standards in ninth grade literature. As you can see from this graph, about 87% of my English language learners are Spanish speakers, with a sprinkling of other languages in there where about 1 to 2 other students speak these languages throughout my classes. My student proficiency levels in English are a wide range. More commonly, my students, as seen in this graph, are at an entering proficiency in their composite level, which is made up of their reading, writing, speaking, and listening levels in English. And also more importantly for this course and for my courses specifically is that their reading level is also at an entering level predominantly. But as you can see, I have a mix. I do have students that are at the developing and expanding levels, which means that differentiation is an important part in my classroom instruction, but also, as we will discuss later, the bottom-up theories are also very important within my classrooms because of the wide range of levels for my students. So the bottom-up theories focus on the processes of learning from the basic word acquisition to more complex practices in reading comprehension. These are the theories that move from more simple tasks to the more complex tasks as those models progress. The bottom-up approach to reading instruction is an effective way to teach reading comprehension to many learners, especially diverse learners. The focus on the phonemic awareness will set the students up for success in the higher order comprehension skills. Using these bottom-up theories will set my students up for success as they are needing to learn foundational reading skills in English, vocabulary, and reading comprehension skills. The struggle is to do all of this in an effective yet quick way so that students have their best chance at being successful, especially since they are in high school and we don't have a lot of time to get them to that high school diploma. Philip Goff introduced his theory of reading in the 1970s. In this theory, the reading process begins with letter recognition, which readers would then link to sounds and move on to word recognition, and finally ending in the comprehension of what they are reading. Goff explained that these readers go through various stages. He then expanded on his initial theory of reading and created the simple view of reading. This model condensed the stages of his previous model into 2 processes: decoding skill and language comprehension. Decoding is the ability to read isolated words quickly with accuracy through sound-letter correlation. Language comprehension is defined as the ability to make meaning from words that are spoken as part of sentences. Decoding and language comprehension occur sequentially, and they are both needed to obtain reading comprehension. But they are considered, in his view, completely separate. They don't influence each other. But along with that, as you can see in this graphic, in order to obtain reading comprehension, decoding and language are not an additive concept. You don't add language skills to the decoding skills. Instead, they multiply each other. So they rely on one another, and if one area is weaker, it's going to affect the score and ability in the other area. Hollis Scarborough's reading rope expanded on the two skills mentioned in the simple view of reading. And it clarifies how complex reading actually is. The rope, as you can see in this graph, includes two separate strands, the word recognition strand and the language comprehension strand. The word recognition strand depends on three independent yet linked skills of phonological awareness, decoding, and sight recognition. This includes the ability to identify phonemes, syllables, blending. The decoding relies on the student's ability to make spelling sound correspondences. And then the sight word recognition is the reader's ability to recognize familiar words on sight. This is not the same as sight words, but it is the innate ability that we all have as we develop our reading to look at even more complicated words, and we know exactly what that word says and what that word is on sight. This strand requires that the reader becomes more automatic in these skills through systematic and explicit instruction. These skills, as they're developed, should become immediate, and they should not require energy use. That energy use needs to be reserved for the language comprehension strand. The language comprehension strand requires readers to become increasingly strategic in their comprehension. It goes beyond those word recognition and asks readers to understand what the words are trying to say. So this is where your background knowledge, vocabulary development, verbal reasoning, your inferences, your metaphors, and literacy knowledge of genres, text parts are used to build comprehension. In my classroom, the varying levels of English skills requires that I use differentiation to help improve their reading comprehension. And because of that, the bottom-up approaches are very impactful in my classroom. Some of my students still need to work on their phonemic awareness and phonemes, while other students are ready to progress to more difficult comprehension skills. And as we learned from Scarborough's rope and simple view of reading, as the reading level progresses, teachers need to differentiate with students in areas where their reading skills have broken down. When a student's not a fluent reader, the teacher would provide interventions in word recognition, whereas if a student is struggling with comprehending a text, the teacher would then provide instruction and comprehension skills. So some students may need more help in decoding skills, but others would need more help in vocabulary. And I see this a lot within my classroom. I need to be able to identify where my specific students' weaknesses are to best help them. So some of the strategies that I use in my classroom are phonics instruction. I also use a lot of vocabulary instruction to build up their vocabulary as quickly as possible. So we use Frayer models, vocabulary and context. We just do a lot of vocabulary instruction. We also work on fluency with choral reading. Choral reading can be very impactful with English language learners as that they are gaining more confidence in pronouncing words correctly when read aloud, understanding the pronunciation in English, and it gives them kind of a safe space for them to practice their fluency in reading without having all eyes on them. And then obviously with reading comprehension, the use of graphic organizers is very impactful with ESOL students as it gives them another way to make meaning with their text. One of the technological tools available to teachers that works with these bottom-up approaches is the HMH's Read 180 program. This program allows students to take a reading test that assesses their reading comprehension levels. Once the students' levels have been determined, they're placed in either a code program or a comprehension program. We use this in my classroom. It's provided by the district. So the code program works on those lower skills of phonemic awareness, and it teaches them at a level of instruction needed to gain their decoding skills. They take an extra little assessment within this program that assesses where they're struggling with their phonemic awareness and decoding skills, and it places them at the correct level. Many of my students start at level 1, where they are learning basic letter sound correlation and simple words like cat. Then another grouping of my code students are also in the higher strands of the code program where they are working on more the blending of phonics, the blending of, the letter sounds. The comprehension program, in contrast, focuses on many of the comprehension strands of Scarborough's rope, especially in vocabulary instruction. So the students benefit from the individualized instruction in this software. And then we also have small group guided reading instruction with me, because this is based off of a rotation model. And the students also do independent reading of texts and take quizzes at their level. I have found Read 180 to be very effective in my classroom, in that the students are able to grow their English comprehension skills exponentially when they actually do the program. I have seen gains of 300 to 400 Lexile levels for some of my students that really take this program seriously and do the software during the independent time. And so I have been impressed with how it has helped them. Now, as with all software, there are weaknesses. It is not the most engaging at times. Many students struggle with the independent work part of it. So there are areas for improvement, but it has helped my students be able to obtain these decoding skills and reading comprehension skills, as mentioned in the bottom-up theories. Next, I will discuss the top-down theories. The top-down theories of literacy present the idea that literacy is obtained through work with the whole language and not just parts of the word or sentences. These theories put more importance on what the reader already knows than what is on the page. When educators focus on background knowledge, inferences, reader's response, and other interaction with the whole text, they are using these top-down theories. The first of these top-down theories that I find useful in my classroom is the schema theory. The schema theory was created by Anderson and Pearson. They authored a paper that applied schema theory specifically to reading instruction. And it's said within this theory that people organize their knowledge into schemata. So I like to think of it as my picture here that I created demonstrates as a filing system for the brain. This is where information goes into files with knowledge that it connects to. Sometimes it's a new file completely if there's no knowledge it connects to. So readers would place the information, their knowledge, into the file. And then this file would then be placed into a filing cabinet with a broader topic that it connects to. So in this illustration, I talk about D-Day paratroopers being something new that the learner gains information about. They put that into a file. This file is then put into a filing cabinet that is about D-Day. So they've just connected this new information about D-Day paratroopers to their existing schema about D-Day. And then this D-Day filing cabinet would be in a room with other filing cabinets about World War II. So in this theory, it suggested that a reader would access these filing cabinets when they are reading about a topic. And they may be connecting completely new information to information that they already have in their filing cabinet. Or they would be connecting information that they've already learned and know a little bit about to information within these bigger filing systems. So the theory suggests that the more elaborate a person's schema is on one topic, the more easily they will be able to learn new information and acquire new knowledge on that topic. Without this existing schema or these filing cabinets, it's difficult to learn new things about that topic. Since my students specifically lack a lot of schema of the English language, it's important for me to activate and use their schema on the reading topics to make comprehending the text easier for them. With the classroom applications of this, while those bottom-up approaches are very important, this top-down approach cannot be ignored or discarded. It's important for my students to have their background knowledge activated and built as they are learning to read. You can do this through a variety of ways with KWL charts, brainstorming, webbing, and other tools to activate the background knowledge. So the first thing the teacher can do is try to assess what is our students' prior knowledge. So for my students, I need to know, where are they coming with? Some of my students have had very little formal education prior to coming to the United States. Others have had a lot of prior education, but also they're coming from very diverse backgrounds. And so it's important for me to kind of know, where are they coming out this topic from? What do they already know about the topic that we're going to be reading? So I can kind of assess this using anticipation guides and pre-tests. Once I've figured out where their levels are and what kind of background knowledge my students have, I can then go forward with either building more background knowledge or activating the background knowledge they have. And lots of times it's a combination of both. So some ways that I can help build background knowledge, especially for my English language learners, that are effective, is to watch videos on the topic, have discussions, use other language skills other than reading to help build up this background knowledge. And then once I've built up background knowledge, I can then allow my students to bring in their own background knowledge and build up their background knowledge using the KWL charts, brainstorming, webbing to make those connections between those files in the filing cabinet that exist and what they are reading. One technological device application that can be used for this is Lumio. My students actually really enjoy Lumio. Lumio is a teacher slideshow tool that makes them more interactive and encourages active engagement in the learning. So teachers can either use the features on a smart board, or they can also let the students interact on the board. And then even better than that, you can actually have the students log into a Lumio and they can work on their own devices and activities. You can do these at student-paced, self-paced activities, or you can do them as whole group activities, or even a blend. So these slides can be made into different types of activities. You can create whole class activities, group activities, or individual activities. Some of the things that Lumio has in these activities and slides are KWLQ charts. They have entrance tickets, which are another great way to do like an anticipation guide for your reading that day. They have shout it out, which you could use to kind of do with the KWL chart in a way where you have students say, what do they already know about the topic, and they shoot up their answers onto the board for everyone to see. There's also teacher-led activities, drawing organizers to visualize what they already know. So you can do a lot of different activities within these. There's different templates the teachers can access that allow the students to have hands-on participation with building and activating this background knowledge. The next theory within the top-down approach is the reader's response theory. So the reader's response theory was created by Louise Rosenblatt. She further expanded on this idea of schemata by saying that our schemata is individualized. So Rosenblatt explains that two readers are going to have very different life experiences surrounding a topic, and thus they're going to respond differently to that topic. And there are two different responses that readers will have to text. The first is the efferent response. The efferent response is all about facts. It's more, what does the text say? What facts are there in this text? And how do I respond to these facts? Then the second type is the aesthetic response. The aesthetic response is more about the individual and emotionally aligned responses of the student. So the student's looking at and recognizing what they are seeing, hearing, and feeling as they read the text and how that is interacting with those texts. So both of these types of responses focus on how the reader is connecting and making meaning with that text. Some of the classroom applications for this are that the students would have discussions with their students where they would examine both the factual and the emotional responses to the reading materials. The students would also respond to their reading as they gain more independence using both types of these responses. So this could include questions about what the text is saying, and then also how the student feels about what is happening in the text. One thing that we've been using in classrooms since I was in high school is the text connections, where students are asked to connect what they're reading to something else they have maybe read, or even in this more modern society, things that they have watched, because we know that scripts and movies are also texts. They can also make connections between the text to themselves, and then they would also make connections from the text to the world. This is very important in my classroom because I have students that have a lot of different world experiences. And this type of making connections to what they are reading, both factually but also aesthetically, allows my students to connect their own life experiences with what we're reading. Because of these diverse backgrounds, they're going to have a direct influence on what they read and how they take in what they are reading. One of the things that I love about my classes is that we have such a rich tapestry of experiences that we can apply to our reading. And then we can also learn more from the reading by seeing how other students connect with these texts. Padlets are a useful technological tool when using reader's response theory. Padlet is an online tool that allows educators to create Padlet boards. These boards allow students and teachers to interact in different ways. One way that we can use Padlets as teachers is as a response tool. Teachers can create discussion topics and questions based off of the reading, and the students can then post a response and respond to each other's posts. They can respond in various ways: written, audio, video, or images, which is very important for my students. It gives them the ability to respond in a way that is more comfortable for them and their language use. You can also create KWL charts within the Padlets where students can add information to each section in real time. And so it's a very collaborative tool. They can also be used to share texts with the students. So you can put the text on a Padlet, and then the students can make connections with that text in a multimodal way. So they can respond and interact with it in different ways. So there are lots of different applications of using Padlet to encourage building background and responses to reading by students. And it's something that I'd like to learn more about how to leverage within my classrooms to help increase these classroom discussions. So in summary, the bottom-up approaches are very critical and important in my classroom for my multilingual learners. They are still learning a lot of the foundational skills that are focused on in those bottom-up approaches, but I also have students, and all of my students honestly need to be able to access the high-level reading comprehension skills eventually. That is where we're heading and where we need to get them as quickly as possible. But within those, I can't discount the need for the top-down approaches with my students. These acknowledge the diversity that my students bring to their understanding and comprehension and allows for us to tap into that rich tapestry of experiences that these ninth graders bring to my classroom. So I have included on the offside some of the references that I used in creating this presentation, and I hope that you have learned a lot about my specific classroom and needs, and hopefully have learned some things that you can use in your own instruction with your own students.